All right, let's get to Queensland because Queensland are now officially in crisis.
This is good, mate. Mate, this producer's in it. He's going to get it. I should have missed the plane. I knew I should have missed the plane.
For everyone watching this, Gordy was unaware that was about to happen, but I took great joy in that. Does he make changes? Now, on a serious note, like, I know that Queensland wouldn't like to panic. No. It's not a good look if you make a hell of a lot of changes. But do they have to make changes?
Walking out last night, I didn't think so, right? Where there's 20 games until our next game. 20 days until the next game, right? We were talking about DCE as captain, so that's going to come up. But we've got 20 days for those guys. Go back, and it's Wayne Bennett saying, go back and recoup, get some form under your belt, you know, and come back in, and I'll see you in the next camp. Is there going to be changes? The question for me is, right, who do we bring in that wears a Queensland jersey that's going to change last night's result?
Well, there's a few. Well, yeah. There's a few. And we can get...
Well,
let's start with the first one, because I think we should start... The big one is DCE. Yep. And you know, Andrew Johns, yep, Cameron Smith, Shane Webke, that's just to name a few, yep, right, that have questioned him being in the team and whether he should be there for Game 2. On Monday, I said to you, Gordy, if they lose Game 1, is there the potential that this could be the last time we see DCE in a maroon jersey? And if they lost, and you said to me it depends on how they lose. Now, yep, it wasn't pretty and it wasn't a good watch last night.
Well, there was that talk before State of Origin 1 and Manly played the Cowboys. Tommy Dearden had a chance to go and shoot the lights out against him and he didn't. DCE. So the next couple of games, is it... No one knows what DCE's doing. Is he uncertain with his future? Can he clear that up and come into camp and lead us? That's the question.
I think he has to, Gordy. I think you can see this has played on his mind.
Do you reckon?
His form has dipped ever since he came out and said he was leading Manly. And you can't tell me that this hasn't affected him.
And it's father time.
And I think he's carried it into camp. And I think he just needs to he's got 2 weeks. Make a call. Make a decision. I mean, we all think he's going the Roosters.
Does Billy tell him he needs to make the call?
I think Billy encourages him to make the call, but ultimately he can't make him make the call. But I think he encourages him to make the call.
So make the call, get all the press out of the road, so when they're going there,
because it's the first thing I got asked about in camp. What are you doing next year? And I've changed my stance on this because I thought before
But just back on that, at least he did face the media and he talked to him.
Yeah. What are you having a go at Spencer and Latrell?
At least he faced the media. No, you are. Yeah. You're the one that brought him up. I just said at least he faced the media.
Yeah. Well, at least, you know, I mean, I won't go there yet, but Spencer was waiting for the ball off the kickoff, but, yeah, they kicked the other side.
That said a lot about the contest, the fact that there's been so much build-up around that, and I'd love to get your take, Gordy. I can't recall seeing that previously, where a team has gone, right, that prop's on that side of the field,
would have wanted him
let's kick it to Max King.
If you were playing, Gordy, if you...
Okay, well, there's 2 reasons.
If you were playing,
there's 2 reasons, right?
You would have wanted him to...
Morley or Webke or Paul Hogan coming off the fence, right? Right, early you go, bang, well, let's kick to him. If it's the start of the game, let's see where he's at. But if he's tearing through, you go, well, let's kick it to the other guy. Isn't that smart?
Was Spencer really tearing through?
Mate, why is it that bad? Why play into him?
But you're giving him what he wants. Why give him what he wants?
I love this from you guys.
Why not get under his skin?
Okay, let me start. I
thought it was a sign of weakness.
It was a sign of weakness.
How's a sign of weakness?
Okay, you've got the Ezra Man situation, right?
You've
got the Jonathan Thurston situation. I'll tell you why. You got the Jonathan Thurston situation.
Yeah,
You've got the back page of the Courier Mail saying that he's a grub, right? And you've got your opportunity to set the tone.
Who said he's a grub in the Courier Mail?
Yeah, but okay, I'm just telling you my opinion. You've got the opportunity to kick to him, try and bash the shit out of him and set the tone and the example for your side to say, we're going to get the better of you no matter what tonight.
Bash him on the next play break.
They're getting bashed anyway. Well, it could change the momentum. It could,
why couldn't they bash him here on the next play?
I love the excuses.
It's not the excuse, I'm just pointing out the fact.
The kickoff is the most explosive play of the game. It's the most explosive carry of the game. Yeah. And the way it was built up, to Braith's point, the fact that it was on the back page of the Courier Mail, and then for Queensland, they'd clearly game planned that. Like, that was a tactic that obviously gone, right, when Spencer comes on, let's go to the other side of the field.
Well, they're probably thinking, let's get under his skin.
To me, that's like picking a fight and not showing up.
Gordy,
Well, they didn't pick
Mate,
that
but you know,
fight.
like, it was great theatre because when he warmed
Yeah.
up, the first time he run down the sideline, he was into the crowd. It was so cool. It was great theatre. And you know what? My area would have, but I had
You
Tony
would have.
Carroll.
I know you.
But I had Tony Carroll and Petro. Like, I had
But
some
you would have
big
wanted to
hombres.
do it. I know you.
But maybe they didn't. Maybe DC as a captain should have, fired the shot. Right, but I'm not out
So
there.
they don't have Tony and Petro. Don't they have any enforcers that can
Well,
take him
maybe
on?
not. Did you watch the game?
I did.
Right. So
This is why they need to
Tino
look at a
was
bloke
taking
like
them
Corey Horsburgh. They need to look at bringing a bloke like Corey Horsburgh for game 2. You know, Tino was obviously. I thought Tino tried to be an enforcement, and perhaps went too far at times. Tino, because we missed his aggression last year. I think we all thought this is the guy who's going to stop us being bullied this year. And I think he went out there to make a statement, but at times maybe it went a little bit too far. So you've got to bring in someone to support him. And I think Corey Horsburgh is the obvious guy because he's got some fire in the belly and he's not going to take a backward step. And I reckon if Corey Horsburgh's out there, he's probably saying to someone, kick it to Spencer, I'll take him on.
Okay, not going to let you two off the hook here. You passionate Queenslanders defending your state, I love it. Should DCE be picked for game 2 or not?
I'd pick him. I was about to say both. My stance on this has changed.
come
Before
on,
the
mate.
series, I thought if they lose
Come
game
on,
1,
mate.
go on.
Spit it
But
out.
I'd pick him. I think he's there again. He's your captain.
Okay.
He's your captain. He deserves to play game 2 because the forward pack let him down the other night. So I would pick him, yes.
You're kidding,
but
Reedy.
I would
The
pick
forward
him.
pack
But
let
the
him
forward
down.
pack was awful. I would pick him, but I would say, DC, this is very clear. We don't win. We're starting again. You're gone.
Okay.
This is it.
Gordy.
I can agree with that.
Okay.
No, look, and I can go, hey, mate, this is your last game, right? Because Darren Lockyer got tapped on the shoulder, I think, in 06, and Mel Meninga spoke to Petro and Stephen Price, said, if we don't win this game, this is your last game. This is your last game for Queensland. Maybe do something like that, say, this is it. Do you want it or not?
It's a huge decision, though.
It's a massive
Gordy,
decision.
because, as you know, everybody likes and respects Billy Slater, and he had a red-hot start to his State of Origin career as a coach. I think he won 4 out of his first 5 games. But since then, and with Michael Maguire coming in last year, and now the result from last night, Billy's hit some challenges. And if he was a New South Wales coach, he'd be copping a lot more heat than what he is already copping north of the border. So the decision around Daly is critical because if he doesn't get it right, then all of a sudden that's 2 series in a row
your
that
honest
he's lost.
opinion, do you think Dearden's a out-and-out State of Origin number 7 that can lead us to a State of Origin victory?
Well, I listened to Joey Johns last night and Shane Webgate today, and the fact that those two are prepared to say that they think Tommy Dearden could provide more creativity, spark and energy to the Maroons' attack, that's good enough for me.
And
I know-
then Ezra Mann come in at 14 or something.
Well, Ezra could possibly come in too. I think, I know it was late in the game, but if you watched when Tom went to half, when Harry came back on the last 5 or 10 minutes, it might be a bit longer actually. Dearden was quite effective in that position and looked dangerous, more so than DC for that game. It's a big call, to be honest with you.
It is
I
a
don't
big
care.
call, right?
A huge call.
I don't
Well, it's a
care.
big call because
Why would
Daly
I?
plays on the
But-
right. Tommy normally plays on the left with the Cowboys. So already you're making a big call that he's got to go over to a different side of the field.
It's above my pay grade.
They got nothing to lose because they're already.
Well, they do. They've got a series to
No,
lose.
but they're already right up
expected to
against
lose
the
it
wall.
now. They're expected to lose it.
In your eyes, maybe.
Are you-
I don't think
hang on,
Queenslanders
hang
think
on.
they're going to go to Perth and lose.
Okay,
I think
hang on.
most
So
Queenslanders
are
think
they
they're gonna-
expected to win the series from here?
Well, in the eyes of probably
Yeah,
Queenslanders, they are. I'm
yeah,
sure
you
Billy
got
thinks they can win.
I didn't say that. I said are they expected
Billy's
to.
the one picking the team, and he probably thinks they can win. So, and he probably thinks they can win with a lot of the blokes who were there the other night.
There's a lot of things that we've thought this year that hasn't happened.
There are.
Don't bring the Roosters up.
Later.
All right, Harry Grant, what a player he is. I love him, great player. But I think it has to be said, last night was probably his worst performance, worst 40 minutes I've seen him ever play. Definitely in a Queensland jersey. I mean, let's just have a look at this. Let's have a look at this, because this sets the scene here a little bit with Harry. And it shows us his effectiveness as a bench player in Origin, coming off the bench, as opposed to when he starts. Now, when he starts, they have never won. It's started 4 times for 0 wins. And last night was one of them. When he's come off the bench in 8 appearances, he's won 6 of them. So that gives us an indication of how he plays off the bench and how he plays when he starts. Now, let's get your thoughts on this. How did you see it?
That's when Ben Hunt's around the ruck as well, and you're playing with, 2 number 9s, and he's coming on, and there's no doubt it was an uncomfortable night for Harry, and maybe when the sting's out of the game, he does do some of his better work, but I don't think, starting him or not starting him. I know those stats are there, but it doesn't mean Harry's not still in the game playing his best.
Definitely an off night by his standards. And you can look at the kick where he puts he puts a cross-field kick in on the last tackle. It ends up being a 7-tackle set. It's ineffective. Then he gets whacked by one of the Blues, going for a dart out at dummy half, loses the ball. Then he tries to, on the last tackle, when it looked as though nobody else really knew what was on, he decides he wants to go on his own out of dummy half. So certainly by Harry's standards, I actually thought he might have fell victim, like when he gave the silly penalty away, trying to kick at Mitch Moses with the ball. I reckon a big focus for the Maroons off the back of last year was not being bullied after what happened in Melbourne, and they spoke about it in the build-up to the game about how Tino's back, our enforcer's back. I felt as though Tino being penalised early for grabbing Lomax around the head, Harry trying to kick at the ball. They were trying to assert some authority and not let the Blues stand over them, but it backfired.
I think you've got to remember Harry came into this game, he'd only played one game in 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? So he's a little bit underdone. But I also think it's worth considering starting him off the bench.
I think that had nothing to do with it. I've got my take on Harry, and I watch him very closely. I mean, this kick here it clearly wasn't planned. It was a big turning point. They've got 2 of the best kickers from that range in the game, DCE and Munster. But you see, when Harry plays, he takes too many steps a lot of the time. That was just a kick, but I think he actually he hurt their forwards last night too. There's a number of times where Carrigan and a few others were on the advantage line, but he takes 2 or 3 steps, then Carrigan has to step back, and then they couldn't gain any momentum. And a few times you notice that when Cameron and DCE got the ball, they had the New South Wales defence in their face. What Harry needs to do is he needs to either give service straight off the ground, like directly straight off the ground, or if he runs, he runs and thinks pass later, because he gets caught in no man's land a little bit. And you talk about them being out of sync and not fluent in their attack last night. The first 40 minutes, or the first 20 at least, is the most critical. And he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but I've seen this sneaking into his game the last couple of years, and it really stood out last night in that first 40 minutes, and I think it really hurt the team. I'm not saying don't pick him, he needs to be in the side, but it's just what they do and how he works on that heading into the games down the track, so he can be a starting 9, and you don't need to worry about that. You see, like even here, he went to go the short side, come back, and look, he just gets dominated. He jumps out, he skips across here, gives it to DCE. It's nearly a shepherd here, they're in no man's land. Either give the pass or run the ball.
I noticed, Braith, I noticed there were stages it looked as though some of his teammates were a little frustrated with the decision.
You could tell it was off the cuff.
I can see Munster there is saying what's doing. And that wasn't the only instance. There's some others that we're having a look at the game again today.
So that was obviously the plan, right? That kick. To get over the top of all with Coates. That was obviously the plan, but it wasn't for him to execute that. And it's okay to take that on if you're in form and you're confident and you're playing well and you're on the front foot, but he just looked like he went away from the game plan at times in that first 40, and making a few errors and penalties didn't help. Again, he's a legend, I love him, and he's up there in the best 2 or 3 nines in the comp. But last night it was just, to me, it stood out. Should he start then or not?
Well, I don't necessarily think he has to, Braith. I mean, you could stick Ruben Cotter in there for maybe the first 20 minutes. Yeah. Maybe shuffle, move Ruben Cotter off the edge, and play maybe a Fermor or a Sura on the
Ruben
edge.
Cotter played hooker in
mate, it's 20 minutes. Just play hooker and got to pass the ball.
I think Billy Slater's got a direct line. He's just pressing that.
He's got to jump in a dummy half for the first 20 minutes.
It's that easy.
Just jump into dummy half at State of Origin level.
Well, you can do it.
So Cotter,
he's a very good footballer.
Cotter and
I'm just giving you some examples of what they can potentially do.
One?
Well, Kurt Manns, obviously, you could play Kurt Manns as your 14 potentially. You could start the game and have Harry Grant starting on the bench. Okay. There's a couple of options there. Yeah. I don't mind them. I don't mind the idea of keeping Harry out of the firing line. We saw those stats. Those stats speak for themselves, right? So they've got to look at alternatives. Okay. And I've thrown a couple up there for Billy.